Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Just wanted to go over a little bit of information from last week and then also take a look at this week. So last week we started talking about administrative ethics. So ethics with relation to staff issues, relationships between patients and families and the organization as a whole, conflict of interests, ethical concerns that are really more administrative in nature. And like I said last week, bioethics is one thing, and we'll take a look at that as well. But understanding administrative ethics and business ethics and what types of issues can occur there is very important as well. So that was last week. Let's take a look at this week. So this week we're going to kind of continue along in that business/administrative ethics realm. Look a little bit about fiscal responsibility, social responsibility, things like distributive justice, resource allocation, that type of stuff. But then also marketing and managed care ethics. So thinking about managed care, setting limits on availability, those types of things. Like, for example, I have an issue right now that I'm dealing with where my insurance is telling me that I don't need this particular medication that has been really effective for me for quite a long time, recently changed insurance. And they're like, no, you don't need that. You need to try this method and this method and this method first. Well, we've already done all of those things. The physician's already sent all of that in, said that, we've done those things. Here's what happened. They weren't effective. And so this is why we moved to this, and it's been effective for the patient for X number of years or whatever. And the insurance company is like, well, we don't really care. We want her to go back to step one again and work through all those things. So, where are the ethics around? Like, that's not really an ethical treatment of that particular patient, in this case, me, because, why should you decrease the level of care for a patient just because you personally haven't seen them work through each of those levels of care? In this case, it's a migraine, an injectable migraine medication. It's not cheap, but it's effective for me. And I tried, just regular oral medications. I've tried the rescue medications. I tried Botox in my scalp. I've tried just about everything, and none of it really is all that effective. But this injectable Emgality has been very effective at keeping my migraines at bay. So there's an ethical question there as to the limits that can be placed by insurers, by providers, etc., as far as the care being provided. And then on the other side of that, allowing patients to go straight to having an MRI without having an X-ray or a CT scan. There's some the opposite sides, kind of the overuse of care in those cases. Sometimes something could be determined on a CT or an MR, or sometimes something could be determined in an X-ray, and isn't really needed to go to those higher levels of a CT or an MR. In many cases, they'll make you climb that ladder up to an MRI. It's more expensive in the long run. I don't necessarily understand it, but there should be some more guidance around that, around the types of things that are being seen in lower level, less advanced imaging before you move to those higher levels. So I understand the issues with overuse and misuse. But there are some ethical issues related to not allowing patients to take what medications they need or get the services that they need. Discussion, obviously, talking about different different situations that were brought on by the pandemic. So, luckily we're kind of stepping away from some of those now, but it's it's still a good scenario to take a look at. The Theranos case study is our case study for this week. I think Theranos is a very interesting case. There's actually a movie on Netflix about it now as well. So really interesting case. The case study was written, I believe, before the cases were really settled. But so take the case study as it is, even if you've already seen the Netflix film. Take the case study as it is and go from there. We're also going to be submitting your final project topic choice this week, when you're thinking about that, I think I was a little too fancy in calling this what it is. It's really just a paper. I called it a manuscript, trying to make it a little more fancy, but it's really just a paper. And the key for the selection of the topic is really to, is it a topic that you can explore both sides of? So something like, someone had submitted an example and I'll use it because it's a good one. Something like patient safety. Yes, there are many ethical discussions, ethical elements to patient safety, but there's really not two sides to the argument. Either you are providing a safe patient environment or you're not. And if you're not, that there's no supportive argument for that. Like, we should always be creating the safest environment for patients. So it's not the type of ethical issue that you can explore both sides of. Choose something you can explore both sides of, because what I want you to do in this paper is describe the dilemma. I want you to defend your position with facts, research, case examples, not just a regurgitation of your personal thoughts, but also back that up with something. Give me some principles or some facts or some research that you've done on whatever your side is. And then I want you to look at the opposite side and back that up with some literature. What are the counter arguments? And the easy one is the abortion debate. So don't feel like you should or have to do that. I know it's a pretty divisive issue, and there are many other types of ethical dilemmas that aren't quite as divisive. But if that's a place where you want to go, feel free. But obviously, when you take a look at that issue, you can see that there are two sides to that argument. There are, people that believe in the woman's right to choose, and there are people that believe that that at the point of conception, that's life, and to go against that, to allow for abortion, is murder. So there's two sides to that argument. Sometimes people are very conflicted, I guess, in their thoughts on topics like that. And that's why I say you might not want to go with such a hardcore topic unless you feel very strongly one way or the other. And sometimes when we feel very strongly one way or the other, we're really unable to see the arguments on the other side. So I caution you in choosing. But sometimes there is a dilemma, an internal dilemma. Okay, yeah, I believe that everyone should have autonomy. They should be able to choose what they do with their body. But yeah, I also, might think that, it's not right to, and I'm not speaking, I have very strong opinions on this topic, which are my personal opinions. So it's not something I would ever, even share with the class necessarily, but I can really see where people can be conflicted. I believe that women should be able to make choices about their own body, but I also believe that, that abortion is wrong. So you can have those kind of conflicted views, and that's okay. If that's where you're at, I probably wouldn't choose it as a topic. So try and find a topic where there are two sides to the argument, but you can comfortably defend your side and then also feel comfortable talking about the relevant counter arguments and feel comfortable doing that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. All I'm looking for is a sentence or two about what your topic is. And then in week 7 is when your paper will be due. And then in week 8, the plan right now is to present maybe like a 5-minute presentation of what your topic is and what your paper was about, what the two sides are about. And that should be in week 8 in a live session. So that's the plan right now. I think all of you have had me in class before. Something always goes terribly wrong when I have a live session scheduled. So we'll see how that goes. But the plan is right now, and I'll get a doodle poll out to everybody, and we can choose a day that works for everyone in that case. Let's see. So we also obviously we have our quiz for this week, and then this Edpuzzle review. So let's take a look at the quiz from last week. So universal precautions. In this case, our answer was that universal precautions require personnel to protect themselves regardless of the patient's infectious status, and that is our correct answer. The other answer that was chosen most often was D, means that all patient blood and body substances are hazardous. it doesn't mean that they're all hazardous. We may treat them all the same way. That's what a universal precaution is, but it doesn't mean that everything is hazardous. So there's kind of some wordsmithing there. Don't we treat every blood and bodily fluid in the same way, but it doesn't mean that every single thing is hazardous all the time. If you hand a patient a cup to take their medicine, and they take their medicine, of course we're going to have gloves on when we do that. All of that's going to happen. It doesn't mean that that little cup is hazardous and needs to go into a red bin, because they put it to their mouth to take their pills. So just be conscious of that. It doesn't mean that everything's hazardous. It just means that we treat everything universally, and it does require personnel to protect themselves regardless of what's going on with that patient, because we never know what's going on with the patient. So we are protecting ourselves in every situation. Whistleblowing. So whistleblowing occurs when, and our answer is A, internal efforts at reform fail and the manager feels morally obligated to protect the public and patients. So this is our answer. Whistleblowers are a situation where, and it doesn't always have to be a manager, but I think I talked about this last week. The questions in these quizzes will be the best answer. So the best answer here is manager. They've tried to, or somebody has tried to make reform. They've reported to compliance. They've reported to hotline, all these different things. And for whatever reason, nothing was done. So then that person is obligated to protect the public and the patients by going to the government or the payer or whatever it happens to be, and blowing the whistle or filing a complaint in that case. The option C, the manager's laid off and discloses information learned through innuendo and rumor, that wouldn't be accurate. Now, sometimes in whistleblowing cases, the person that's the root of it, can be retaliated against. Now, it's illegal to do that, but that sometimes happens. But if the manager is then disclosing information, but it's only learned through rumors and hearsay and that kind of stuff, the government doesn't care about that. The government only cares when you have solid data that they can work from. B is the other one I think that sometimes people chose. The governing body of an organization is the board of directors, board of trustees, board of governors. That's not who would be involved. That's really just reporting within. And that's what has failed in the past for this particular manager in this case. So that's not what we're looking for there. Next one, a not-for-profit hospital administrator invited to serve on the board of directors for a charity. What's the most ethical course of action for her? Certainly the type of things that lots of hospital administrators and hospital employees or healthcare employees get involved in, because oftentimes we have joined this industry because we want to help. So oftentimes we do get involved in boards of directors or volunteer work or whatever with charities. If you are invited to serve on a board of directors, there can be a conflict of interest, especially if that charity is involved in healthcare in some way and helping maybe some of your patients or something of that nature. So the best thing to do is just disclose that information to the organization's leaders. If they have an issue with it, they'll let you know. Otherwise, then the person should be good to go. And this is not just if you're being paid. I mean, sometimes board of directors positions are paid, not often for charitable work, for charities, but paid or not, it doesn't matter. The administrator should always submit that information to the leadership, whomever it is of their organization, and let them make that decision. And that's all I've got. So any questions, as always, please let me know. But otherwise, I will see everyone in the classroom this week. Thanks.